Hello again, everybody. I'm Jeremiah Reiner, and thank you for listening in to a brand new episode of Deeply Rooted.
Deeply rooted in God's word. Deeply rooted in God's word.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Deeply Rooted. Thank you for joining us wherever you're at and however you may be listening. We really appreciate you giving us a listen here today. We're excited about the content. This is episode 58 of Deeply Rooted, so we're plugging right along here, and we appreciate all the people that's been involved with us so far. Again, if you haven't done so, make sure you check us out on our YouTube channel, subscribe there, and leave us a comment, and you can also go over and do the exact same thing at our Apple podcast. We'd appreciate that as well. If you want to follow along a little bit more, you can check us out on our Facebook page at Deeply Rooted. We put up some daily inspirational stuff there for you, as also you can see all the episodes that we share, and you can go on over if you'd like to a little bit more. We have a website that we started this year. It's jeremiahreiner.com. We've got all of our blog posts on there, all the previous and archived messages and episodes of Deeply Rooted. It'll link you right up to our YouTube channel are on there as well, and you can also check out our upcoming ministry schedules. So if we're in the area and near you, we can come on out and fellowship with you. I'd love to see you, love to participate in church with you, wherever you might be at. So with that being said, we're really excited about our guest today. We have Elizabeth McMurray. Elizabeth is an employee of Imagine Fostering here in Southwest Virginia. She's married to her husband, a good friend of mine, Marshall, and they're proud parents of Molly and Maggie. I'm just going to call them M&M just because, and I'm sure you all get that a lot. Elizabeth and Marshall, they're faithful members at Heritage Baptist Church here in Hiltons, Virginia. Some great people up there, friends of ours, very active in their Christian service and faith. So we're really excited to have Elizabeth. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, you're an ETSU grad, and you're even wearing the shirt tonight, so go Bucks.
That's right.
I have some family there as well. When you were going through school and even growing up, did you ever think about working with kids and teens as something that, hey, this is probably where I'm going to end up?
I started out really not knowing where I was going to go. I initially went to ETSU for business. Marketing is kind of the line of work I wanted to get into, and more so consumer behavior, but turns out there's really not a huge market for that in Southwest Virginia. So somehow I always came back to working with kids. I worked with them throughout, middle school and high school, and it always came easy to me. I always enjoyed doing it, especially teenagers. That was like the one thing I really, truly enjoyed doing, is working with teens.
Now, where along the line did you ever think about fostering? When did that kind of come into the picture, or working with foster children or being involved even in those programs?
Well, my dad was the director of social services throughout my whole childhood. So I remember understanding what foster care was probably a lot sooner than most people. I grew up around it. I was always going to his office after work. My siblings even tried to convince me when I was younger that I was adopted at one point. So, and I truly believed it for a hot minute. But I even remember going to the office and wrapping gifts for their annual Christmas party. It always was in the back of my mind as something that was a good thing. But I never truly knew what, God's plans for me. I started out with a marketing degree, unable to find a marketing job. And now I'm working in foster care, approving foster homes. So it's I feel like I've come full circle.
When people talk about fostering, why do you think they should consider getting involved?
There are many reasons, but it's my opinion that fostering is probably one of the greatest mission fields out there. Foster kids are truly the least of these. When I think of who the least of these are, it's the vulnerable foster kids in our area. When you choose to foster, you're choosing a journey that really, really matters, regardless of the heartbreak you're probably going to experience. But God can use you and your family to really bring beauty to what people would consider a really broken situation.
Now, do you have any specific statistics on why this is such a needed ministry?
Yeah, I was doing some research for this, and I looked and saw that there is over 5,000 kids and teens in Virginia currently in foster care. And there are actually 600 are waiting for an adoptive family. So that right there is a huge statistic. There is over 400,000 in the U.S. But unfortunately, there are always going to be homes, but there's never going to be enough homes.
Right.
We always see whenever DSS doesn't have a place for a kid, they send them elsewhere. They'll send them to Richmond or Roanoke. And at that point, you're taking a kid out of their homes first, and then you're ripping them from their teachers, their schools, their coaches. So our whole goal is to find enough homes in this area to keep the kids local, because the last thing you want to do is take them from everything that they've known their entire life. So it's so important that we keep them here. We need homes for little kids. We need homes for sibling groups. We need homes for teens. It's a huge need, and it's always going to be there regardless. We say we're always going to be in business.
Now, what do you personally consider the biggest barrier to foster care?
Fear, I would say, is probably one of the biggest ones, and as humans, we tend to fear what we can't control. So with foster care, you're letting other people, such as DSS and the court systems, determine your future as a parent and your relationship with that child. And also, I think many applicants, especially you see moms, fear that they may become too attached. They fear the heartbreak. But to be honest, fostering should be about the kids. It shouldn't be about you. And at the end of the day, foster children who have been abused and neglected really need that parental attachment to grow and heal. It's so important. You are establishing, you're planting a seed for their future. They've never had a stable home life, so what's going to happen if you don't step in and help them? They may not know what a healthy relationship looks like, and therefore that cycle continues. And also, you see a lot of doubt. Aside from fear, you see doubt. They feel like they're not qualified, just like first-time parents doubt their abilities. The same goes to foster parents. Foster children are always looking for somebody just to be there for them, to support them. You don't need to be this superstar of a parent. You just need to be there. And also, I think misinformation. A lot of times when I'm talking with applicants, you hear a lot of misconceptions, especially talking about qualifications. People think that they need to be married, living in this huge house. You can be single, you can be divorced, you can be married. You can even be leasing your home. You don't have to actually own a home. So really just not good information out there. So that, I would think, fear, doubt, and definitely some misconceptions.
Yeah. Now, for the sake of our audience listening right now, can you walk us through really quickly like the difference between fostering and adoption, so that we can get into some of these next things here? I want people to understand the difference in the two.
Sure. When DSS removes a kid from a home due to abuse and neglect, they are placed in a foster home. Foster homes are just a temporary place for a child to go until they find a permanent family. If no relatives are identified and the child's parents have not met the goals set by the court, then the foster home then qualifies to adopt the child. Some foster homes stay foster homes. Some say they come in to apply and they say, I just want to foster, but others say, I want to foster to adopt, or they decide halfway through, like, I can't live without this kid, so they decide to adopt them. But adoption from foster care is a wonderful thing. Unlike private adoption agencies, adoption from foster care is little to no cost, and there's a lot of advantages from, if your goal is to adopt, there's a lot of advantages adopting from foster care.
Now, you work with a group called Imagine Fostering, which is the location you're at here in Southwest Virginia, I believe is in Duffield, is that right?
Yes.
All right, so explain to everybody real quickly like what you guys do at Imagine Fostering and what all services you provide.
At Imagine Fostering, we are considered a child placing agency, so we are licensed through the state of Virginia. We approve foster families to be therapeutic foster homes. When DSS needs a home for a child, they will refer them to our agency in hopes of...
And when people are talking about DSS, that's Department of Social Services.
Yes,
okay.
I'm sorry,
No, that's okay.
Those acronyms, there's plenty.
Yeah.
So when I say DSS, it's social services. So they'll refer them to our agency in hopes of finding a family for them. but we serve children all throughout Southwest Virginia, but we provide case management services. So we're in your home helping you work through issues that you may have. We're helping you schedule doctor's appointments, and we're really just there to help. We facilitate and we help you through the process of fostering.
What's the cost to the families or the people that want to get involved in this?
It's little to no cost. Our agency covers the cost of trainings and background checks, which are extensive. To become an approved foster home, you must have a simple health statement filled out. So sometimes you have the cost of maybe having a physical or have your physician fill out the form for us. But other than that, it's as basic as having a first aid kit in your home, a fire extinguisher, working smoke detectors. So it's really little to no cost. People think it's expensive, and it is a process. But as far as financial, it's not a financial burden.
How long is the process from usually beginning to end of the kids actually coming into the house?
It takes anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. So if you're really willing to get that paperwork into us, if you're willing to sit down with us and have those interviews and do your background checks, we could probably say 6 to 8 weeks.
Is there a specific age group you guys deal with more than others?
We tend to get more 8 years old and up. We also get sibling groups. We see some younger, but we primarily see the majority is 8 years and older.
Is it more individuals or is it a lot of siblings?
It's probably 50-50. We see some that DSS or social services cannot find a place that can house all 3 of them. So they'll call us and say, hey, do you have a home for these 3 siblings? So in those cases, we do see a lot of younger kids. We might have an 8-year-old, but that 8-year-old might have a 2-year-old sibling that comes with them. So their main goal is finding a home for all of them to stay together, because the last thing we want is to separate them.
Yeah. Now you mentioned goal there. Is that the goal of fostering, like to get kids in a home, or are you guys thinking, well, I really hope these guys get adopted? Is that kind of the end game, really?
In foster care, the main goal is reunification. So as soon as they come in, 99% of the time, regardless of the situation and how it was whenever they were removed from their home, they want to reunify them with their original biological family or family members. And then as time goes on, unfortunately in our area, drugs are huge.
Right.
So you see how that takes effect and their priorities are out of line. So you see a lot of, if mom and dad are unfortunately addicted to drugs, their aunt and uncle probably are too. So you see a lot less relatives stepping forward due to drugs, because it's more of a family issue sometimes. So it starts out reunification, but more times than not, it ends up with adoption.
So, what would be like a pretty successful percentage of reunification, do you think?
If I had to guess, I would say reunification is probably closer to 25%.
And do you think that's just simply because parents are just not willing to do what it takes, I guess, to come back into their life?
And most times you see the goals being, attain employment, have a stable income, housing. And when you are addicted to something such as drugs or alcohol, those things are hard to come by. Your priorities are so out of line. So you see a lot of kids not going home, whereas, 50 years ago, it was their dirty house or alcohol. So they were able to clean their house up or go to AA meetings, but now you don't see that anymore. You see drugs coming and staying. And unfortunately, that is just the reality that we're living in Southwest Virginia.
Is there any interaction between the kid and the original family prior to that? Or is it more of you kind of worm your way into that?
The biological parents?
Yeah.
Well, it all depends on the situation, but if the Corps and social services thinks it's appropriate, they are able to visit with their parents 1 to 2 times a month usually. So it's a time for them to get together and see and check up and make sure everybody's doing okay. So sometimes you have parents that are compliant with that, sometimes you don't.
Now let's talk a little personal here, because I know I don't care to admit this on the podcast, but I do what I can in my job within the limits as best as I can behave to minister. that does not mean that I'm evangelizing every kid that walks into my classroom.
Yeah.
But how about you? Like, how do you go about, living out your faith and at the same time, being a light in this world through foster care?
Sure. Just like all Christians, you do your best to be like Jesus, but it's hard. We all fail. I just really try that every time I'm around a foster child or around a potential foster family or the foster families we do have, that I just show them grace and show them love. And I really, really try to advocate in ways. So this is probably my marketing coming back in, but I use a lot of social media to reach out there and tie Jesus to foster care, because those two things go hand in hand. And I really feel like, it truly is a mission field, and people are just not aware of how big of a need it is. So I'm constantly trying to talk to people about it. And if, I joke with some of my friends, hey, you guys should be foster parents. I always have that in the back of my head of, oh, they would make good foster parents. Yeah. And so it's really, Jesus and foster care really go together. And it's easy to talk about it with Christians because they understand what their responsibilities are. They know that they should be doing their part to help. Right. So it's easy to talk about it, but it's also very hard for some people to follow through because it is such a commitment.
Now, what about the people that are listening here, or maybe you come in contact with, and are looking to get involved either as a foster family or maybe just even in the career? Maybe there's people out there listening thinking, golly, I'd love to do what Elizabeth is doing, or at least in some capacity, I think I could help. What would you say to those people?
You can always find a way to help in some degree. You can support a foster family that you can take them a hot meal, especially when they get a new placement and they're just trying to figure out the whole thing. You can take them a hot meal, be that support system for them, call them and check on them. It's as little as that, but it's as big as actually fostering. We have something called part-time foster parents, and they are there for our full-time foster parents when our full-time foster parents can't watch these children. So say something like there's a death in the family and they need to go out of town. Our part-time foster parents will step in and say, hey, I'll keep them for the weekend until you get home. So it's a way to get your feet wet without completely jumping in. And it's a good way to start the process if you're still not sure if that's something you want to do full-time. So, like you said, you can support, you can be part-time, you can do full-time. And I would just suggest that if you do decide this is something you want to do, reach out to those foster parents, because I can talk till I'm blue in the face, but they're going to have a different perspective than me, and they're going to understand what it's like to be there with those kids day in and day out. So I would definitely just do your research, talk to experienced foster parents. If you're getting into this field, just be prepared for the heartbreak. Be prepared to put those guards up, get your job done, do the best you can, but understand that that's going to take a toll on you. But what you're doing is so important. And these children are vulnerable, and they need you to be there. And what you do truly does matter.
Now, what are you guys looking for in employees? Like, is there a specific degree that you all would be looking for, or is it more of a background in a certain area if you're looking to hire people?
Yeah, we usually see psychology, sociology majors as far as to qualify, and you do have to have some experience working with kids as well. So social services has a different set of requirements, but because we're considered a therapeutic foster care agency, we need you to have a little bit more experience when it comes to psychology and sociology.
Have you ever worked with a different agency besides Imagine Fostering?
I worked for a short time at Social Services in Scott County. So I was just a temporary hire. I didn't have the qualifications for it, and it didn't last long because I got pulled out to do some adoption work that I truly enjoyed doing. So it's so hard. Those caseloads they give you are so high, and that's why you see a large turnover in that specific realm of work, because it is hard emotionally and physically, because you want to be there for all these kids, but you spend a majority of your time putting out fires. So the kids that sit back and kind of just are quiet, they kind of get swept under the rug, and you're really working on those kids that have some serious problems. So that's why you see a lot of turnover in that area. But I definitely don't want to push anybody away from doing it, because it's important. I just didn't have that specific personality to be successful at that particular job.
What's the difference between you guys at Imagine and just your basic social services in these counties?
So we are both child placing agencies, but we are licensed through them, but we're considered a therapeutic foster care agency. So our parents get specific training that will allow them to understand the impact of trauma, abuse, and neglect. They have a little bit more of an understanding of what it means to have a healthy attachment with a child. They get specific trainings that will allow them to help the child more, with the understanding that, if a child comes in, they will put them in our agency as a therapeutic placement. Most of these children will have a doctor that they see regularly. They might see a therapist once a week, once a month. They might have a medical diagnosis. Different things like that will qualify them for therapeutic. But sometimes we get kids and they're just normal, nothing specific that they've, diagnosed them with, but
Right.
They will put them in our agency. And we will come to find out, I say this all the time, but every child can be considered a therapeutic child because they have all experienced such trauma and tragedy in their lives that all of them could benefit from these services that we are giving our kids.
Now, you all, I guess, would service kids how young? Like all the way through infancy?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then up to 18, I suppose?
We are actually licensed to take, we say 0 to 18, but if a child is 18, they have a great program called Fostering Futures. And so what you used to see is at age 18, children would age out. Most of them would end up in homeless shelters because you're 18, you can't stay in this foster home anymore, you're kicked out. But Fostering Futures has allowed children to stay in the foster home until they're 21, actually. So they can get their college. They can get their feet underneath them after graduation. They can find a job. They can, go to college or do vocational setting and then stay there until they're 21. And it's a great opportunity. They give them financial assistance. They pay the foster families to keep them there. So there's no financial burden on anybody. So it's a lot more, it's a lot better for the children and the families.
Now, is that program something that is local around here, or is that something you're going to have to go to some other parts of the state to get?
No, that is statewide. There's some states that at age 18, you're still kicked out of foster care. So Virginia was actually was one of the first to implement that plan. It's sad. It's sad to see. I can't imagine being 18. Can't imagine being 18 and being kicked out of my house, not knowing where to go, don't have a job. I didn't know what I was doing at 18. So it's heartbreaking that in some states, kids are still being kicked out of foster care at 18.
Well, let's end at least on a brighter note, I guess. Do you have any good success or feel-good stories that you could kind of share with us?
We have, thankfully, we're pretty small. There's just 4 of us. We have been open for about a year, almost a year in December. So far this fiscal year, we have aided in 4 adoptions. And that's a big number for the small amount of kids that we help.
Sure.
It's been a great thing to experience, to see these families come full circle. Some of these kids have come from really horrible situations and experienced a lot of heartbreak. So, we've had 4 adoptions, and hopefully we're going to have a few more soon.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you coming on. We're going to pause right there and come back with some closing announcements. Elizabeth's going to let you know how you can get involved with Imagine Fostering. So we're going to come right back after this announcement. All right, gang, we're back with some closing announcements here, and I want to turn it over to Elizabeth for all of you that might be interested in reaching out with Imagine Fostering or getting in touch with them and how you might be able to do that. So, Elizabeth, kind of walk us through if people are interested in helping you guys, supporting, or maybe even getting in contact with being involved here with Imagine Fostering. How would they do that?
Absolutely. We have several different points of contact. You can email me at emcmurray.ifc@gmail.com. You can visit our Facebook page at Imagine Fostering, or our website with a lot of more information is imaginefostering.com. Also, our office number in Duffield is 276-431-3500.
And what are your hours of operation? Are you guys Monday through Friday?
We're Monday through Friday from 10 to 5.
Okay, so if they want to reach out to you guys, that would be the time.
We are located at the Pioneer Center in Duffield.
Okay, gotcha. Well, Elizabeth, we appreciate you being on. I thank you for taking time out of your all's busy schedule for being here. And again, if you guys want more information on that, make sure you visit that website, get in contact with them down at Imagine Fostering. You can also reach out to us here at Deeply Rooted. We'd be glad to put you in contact with them. Don't forget to go on over, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you go on and do the same thing there at Apple Podcast. That being said, we want to thank our good friends at Pod Point Ministry. Can't say enough about what they're doing. If you're a church or an organization that is looking to get ministry out there through way of technology and content, I cannot begin to emphasize enough the work that Pod Point Ministry does. So please look them up online. Please try to reach out to them and get hooked up with them, especially if you're trying to get your services online, maybe some teachings, or especially in the time that we're in now. I really want to push them to you guys. They do a tremendous work. They're a fantastic ministry that I think you benefit from. And again, go on over, follow us on Facebook at Deeply Rooted, and you can also find us at our website there, jeremiahreiner.com. Blog post, ministry schedule, and all the archived episodes are on there as well. So until next time, we love you guys. Hope you have a great week in Jesus.
Deeply